Greetings, comrades. The subject of today's Marxism Explained, which is the second edition. Today I'll be talking about proletarian internationalism. Proletarian internationalism is, for some, one of the most attractive features of Marxism, and for others, especially on the right, the reason they hate it. But what is proletarian internationalism? Proletarian internationalism is a philosophical outlook on the world based upon Marxist analysis of the class nature of society. And it ties in with a lot of other Marxist concepts, but I will avoid going into too much detail about those as I want to give them proper attention in individual videos. Now, as a world outlook, it tends to express itself more in action than words, as for all Marxists, the concept of proletarian internationalism is a given. An idea or a feeling so close to our hearts that we need not even dissect it too much as an individual concept, due in part to its simplicity and because, as I mentioned earlier, it's intertwined with many other Marxist concepts. However, I will attempt to explain it to those unfamiliar with the concept and give some examples of how it's been expressed in the past or how it could be expressed. Proletarian internationalism essentially means solidarity amongst workers of all nations, and is expressed best in the final line of Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto, "Workers of the world, unite." If that phrase stirs your heart the way it stirs mine, then you and I are comrades for life. Marxist analysis of the class nature of society is that society is stratified between the bourgeois or ruling class and the proletarian or working class. I'll delve into the Marxist theory of class in more detail in another video. It essentially says that the bourgeois class attempts to divide the working class in any way it can to weaken them, by race, religion, ethnicity, sexuality, and even gender. But despite this division, all workers are oppressed by the bourgeois class to varying degrees. Some through simple wage slavery, and others through outright tyranny, using religion, race, nationality to turn them against each other for the benefit of the bourgeois class. There's much more to it than that, but as I said, I'll make another video dedicated to that in due time. Just going off subject for a second, I think there's a film or a series, which I haven't seen, but I believe it kind of shows this. It's called The Monocled Mutineer, and basically it's about, during World War I, a British officer kind of realises that he's got more in common with the enemy German soldiers than he has with the people who were sending both him and the German soldiers off to die, and yeah, so that's kind of an example of it. Now, the working class of the world over has its own class interests, and when you strip away the desires that come about as a result of religion, gender, etc., these interests are mostly the same, but are of course affected by the environment in which a person lives. A person living in the desert, or in the jungle, or in a cold, snowy region, or a temperate area, has particular needs in order to survive. So they should live their lives differently in order to adapt to those different conditions. However, it's fair to say that every worker on this earth wants his or her own survival needs met, to be able to raise a family in safety, to have fun, good social life, freedom, dignity, all these things. Workers in some countries may have all these things, and others may have none of them. But in the end, all are dominated by the bourgeois class. Now, anarchists and Marxists, I think, agree on this class analysis. This is in part because capitalism is a global system and affects everyone in one way or another. The bourgeois class is international. Its interests move beyond borders, across oceans and deserts, and reach into every corner of the earth to find profit. American companies exploit Indian workers, and British companies exploit African workers. Therefore, in order to combat this international system of capitalism, the working class must unite, become a global class in a global struggle to fight for its own class interests. A global attack requires a global defence. It requires that workers of each nation recognise that their struggle is intertwined with the struggle of those in other nations, even though they may live in better conditions. This is why we Marxists call for global revolution. Now, how does this concept of proletarian internationalism express itself in action? It ranges from non-violent ways to extremely violent ways. Now, other ideologies do incorporate the concept of internationalism, such as Islamism, but as I'm talking about the Marxist version, I will use only examples related to class struggle. Here's some examples of proletarian internationalism ranging from non-violent to violent. So, workers in a poorer country, third world country, are being exploited to produce goods to sell in richer countries for profit. An internationalist response would be for the workers in the richest country to boycott those goods, to protest the company, or even sabotage the means of distributing those goods in order to stop them from being sold and thus end the flow of profits to the company. Another example is one country attacks another. Workers in the aggressor country refuse to work to aid the war effort, they protest the war. Soldiers refuse to fight or turn on their officers, as in the monocled mutineer example I gave you, and general sabotage of the country's ability to wage that war. A civil war breaks out along class lines. If a foreign government is sending aid to the bourgeois side, workers in that country again can protest, can sabotage that country's ability to give aid, or even join the side of the working class in that war. Examples include the international brigades who fought on the side of the Republicans during the Spanish Civil War, the volunteers of the Chinese Civil War, the volunteers who fought on the side of the North Koreans during the Korean War, the volunteers who fought in the Vietnam War, and those who committed acts of sabotage in America and Western nations during those conflicts. Some mass movements also cross national borders, and should they be acting in the interest of working class, they can then be considered examples of proletarian internationalism. Examples of this include the attempted revolutions in Europe after the October Revolution in Russia, the Arab Spring revolts, where movements in different countries aided each other or acted in solidarity with them, and the Real Democracy Now movement also was acting in solidarity with those countries. The Arab Spring is a good example of why proletarian internationalism is needed in a workers' struggle. The bourgeois class of Bahrain, though unable to quell the result by itself, was able to call upon the Saudi government to invade and restore order. Now, it would have been nice if the workers in Saudi Arabia had acted to sabotage that invasion effort, but to be honest, I doubt they even knew about it. It would also have been good if Western workers had acted to protest the giving of aid or the trading with the Saudi ruling class, but class consciousness in the Western world is weak at the moment. We have to understand that though we may live in different countries with much better conditions, the working class and the working class movement is engaged in a global struggle, and we should use every resource that we have to hand in order to aid that struggle. Now, I'm very lucky that I live in a rich Western country, and therefore I have a lot more resources at hand in order to help other people. I can protest freely, I can boycott companies, I can spread publicity about the cause. So basically, workers in every country should use every resource that they have to hand in order to aid the global struggle. So they have a basic understanding of proletarian internationalism. As I said, it's linked with many other Marxist concepts, and as I explore those subjects, we will learn more about it. But as an isolated concept, I think I've given a pretty healthy definition. If you have anything to add, if you have any questions, please leave your comments or send your messages, and look out for the next installment of Marxism Explained, which I may well do today if I feel like it. So thank you for watching, and take care.